So once you got fairly proficient with your squatting, i.e. you've gone all the way from bodyweight squat, graduated to goblet, graduated to front squat, ultimately you're going to want to get to a position whereby you're supporting the bar on your back. That's going to be the most loadable position for you, and that's going to really allow you to challenge your glutes and your quads more effectively without your shoulders fatiguing, which is typically what happens when we're holding weights out in front of us in a goblet or front squat. So what I'm going to do today is go through some of the considerations that can affect your high bar back squat and affect the muscles that we use, how we can ensure that we are training the muscles that we want to use, and tell you exactly how to set up your high bar back squat so that you can perform it safely and effectively. Let's get into it. So the objective of the high bar back squat is to challenge mainly the glutes and the quads. And in order to do that, we're going to need to keep the hips fairly neutral as we go down. The knees are going to have to travel quite far forwards so that we can challenge the quads as well. Now, something that's going to affect your squat is your center of mass as you perform the movement. And your center of mass is essentially where your weight is distributed throughout the movement. And we want that to be over the middle of your foot throughout the entirety of the movement. However, something that's going to impact that is your structure, namely your ankle mobility and the length of your femurs. Now I'm going to be a great example to show you what a very abnormal center of mass distribution looks like, because my squats are essentially hinges. So if I just show you from the side, if I get into a position to squat, you'll see because of my long femurs and limited ankle mobility, knees don't go too far forwards and hips translate backwards so that my weight can stay over my feet. So that means that my center of mass is shifting quite far forwards as I perform my squat. Now, how can we have a positive impact on that? If you've got the structure that permits it, you can do lots of ankle mobility work. That's going to be one thing that you can do, but you're not going to be able to do something about your very long femurs. So what can we do? I have a squat wedge, and what that is going to do is that is going to shift my center of mass back so that when I perform a squat, I'm now able to bring my knees forwards. I'll show you this now. My knees can go much further forwards, and my torso now stays much more upright as I go into depth and come out of it. Whereas if I step off, just to show you the difference again, very different movement pattern and a lot less depth, and I'm working pretty much my glutes and my hamstrings because my knees don't really move too far forwards. So, high bar back squat. The reason why it's called a high bar back squat is because we set this in the top of your traps, and it has a counter called the low bar back squat, which is set in the ridge of your scapula. So we're going to set this up in the traps, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to assume my stance on the wedge to begin with, and then I'm going to put my hands on the bar. Then in this position, I'm just going to go down until the bar is around that eye level. And then what I imagine, if you've ever played rugby and been in the scrum, I haven't because I was a back. I used to feed the ball into the scrum. But what you do is you imagine that you're going in for a scrum, traps right into the bar, okay? So once traps are in position, we then bring the feet under the bar, like so. Now here, let me just show you two mistakes. So mistake number one is bar goes too high, like right in your neck, like this. And this will put you in a world of pain. Especially, I mean, it's painful now, but with a few kilos on the bar, this is going to be an awful position to be in. You don't want to be there, okay? So make sure, and you want to set this up when it's racked, make sure that the bar is right in the traps there. And everyone has the muscle to do this, okay? Like every single human being has the muscle to do this because we've all got traps, so we don't need any kind of pads or anything like that. So push this nice and tightly into your traps, and then you're going to find that you're in a nice position. So mistake number two, it should be a rule, and I think most advanced people know this: do not perform any new movement until you are stable. And that's typically the error that happens here. And a lot of beginners do this. They'll just get their feet into any old position. Then they'll feel unstable, but they will still think, oh, that's how you're meant to do it, and I'll move. And here, my feet are in a dreadfully, if I stood up, I know that I'm going to fall backwards, okay? We do not want to do that. What you need to do is ensure that your feet are going to be in a nice position for you to really keep your center of mass and your base of support in a good position, so that, and that's going to be here for me, when you stand up, you're nice and strong and stable. Okay, so that is how to tweak that error. Just play around with your feet, make sure that they're in the right position. That will be under the bar or slightly behind the bar, and then once you're ready, stand up just by thrusting the hips. So feet under the bar, nice solid position. I'm going to bring my rib cage down, pelvis neutral, elbows slightly down towards the floor. Once I'm there, I'm just going to extend the hips forwards, and that's going to allow me to stand up. Once I've done that, I'm going to go back onto the wedge. And now it's time to talk about foot position. What we want is we want our feet flat to the floor, okay? A common error is to focus on pushing the knees out. Now what that does is it takes your adductors out of the equation and excessively lengthens them, so that if you go down with your knees pushed out, you initiate more of a stretch reflex of your adductors, which causes your knees to come in, which we don't want, okay? So in order to counter that, just flatten your feet as much as possible. Now the other thing that does as well is when you flatten your feet, you've got a much stronger base of support. If I was to push my knees out now, I've reduced my base of support because I've slightly supinated my feet. And that also limits the extent to which you can push your knees forwards, so it's going to limit your ankle range of mobility, which we don't want. So flatten your feet as much as possible, keep your knees neutral, and then as we go down, that's going to allow you to send your knees forwards. So once feet are in position, we just need to ensure that we are fully prepared to start the lift, everything is in tension and we are braced. So feet wedged into the floor, pushing down nice and flat, they're completely flattened. Pelvis neutral, rib cage on top of the pelvis, bar pulled right down into the spine so that all of the muscles around the spine are activated, and that's going to provide a lot of stability from the back throughout the movement. Once we've assumed that position, we're going to brace. You can click below to see a video on how to brace, and then we're ready to perform the movement. So we've assumed all the positions that we need to. We're in a super strong position to squat. What we're going to do now is knees are going forwards, hips are going down simultaneously. And we're going to go down until the hips are below the knees. We're feeling some tension in our quads. And then from here to get up out of the lift, we're just going to focus on pushing the bar into the ceiling, crown of the head up, lock out the hips. Then once we're here, we just reset, making sure that the feet are flat, rib cage is stacked on top of the pelvis. We brace, perform the movement, knees forwards, hips down, go to depth, try and keep the depth consistent every time, and then push the bar into the ceiling, lock out. Once you've done your reps, you're going to re-rack by walking in until the bar touches, and then we drop down and you safely emerge, and that's how you perform your high bar back squat. Thanks for watching, hopefully you found that useful, and I'll see you in the next video.